The most successful people in the world can delay gratification. The longer you can delay instant gratification, the higher probability of your success is.
Hello everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Talk to Rami show. This is Rami, your host. Today is a special day for me because I'm sitting here with an amazing person that I really admire. Ari Rastegar is here. He is the CEO and the founder of Rastegar Capital, author, philanthropist, hardcore entrepreneur, and the top of that, he wrote a book, The Gift of the Failure. This is what we all afraid of, the failure, but he's looking at it as a gift. Ari, welcome to the show, my friend.
Thanks for having me.
It's so interesting. You know, let me tell the audience and listeners that they are listening. I was looking to get you for a year. Persistence is the key. And then one day, this is really interesting because one day I was passing by my office and then I told my wife, let's go have a cup of tea at Shandi's, this local Persian restaurant.
Very Persian of you.
Yeah, and then she said, honey, you know, my wife is American, but she got used to Persian tea. And I said, let's go have a tea. And here you go, I walk into the restaurant and then I look at it and said, that's Ari. He's sitting over there, quiet, reading and taking note and highlight every damn thing. And I look at my wife and I said, honey, everything happens for the reason. And she said, what do you mean? I said, that's Ari that I was going to have him on my show. And she said, don't do it. Don't do it. Don't bother him. This is rude. You know, she's American. She's not the Persian culture guy. You know, we just go, hey, salam, halat khube. And then I could not hold myself. And I came and say hi. And this is a good point. A good point. You were so nice. You were so open to conversation. You even gave me your phone. It says, put your phone number here, which is the people in your level that been busy and get 2,000 heads a day for being here, being there. You were so open and generous to have that conversation going.
Well, last I checked, you bought my lunch. So I think you were the generous one.
But you know, that was the highlight of my day, man. Thank you. Thank you so much to, you know, have the conversation and chat. And here you go. We end up here sitting and chatting. So tell me, who is Ari Rastegar? You have a very interesting background. Born here, Dallas, you know, worked with a lawyer, went to New York. And very interesting. Just tell us a little bit about how you started it.
Yeah, well, who you are is kind of a big statement. I guess I'm a father first. You know, Father's Day coming up on Sunday.
Yes.
I think the day I became a father of my first child is the day I became a human being. I think before that it was some sort of humanoid, maybe. I don't know if it was exactly human. Being Iranian is a big part of who I am. My father's Iranian. My family came here in 1978. I think the story of a lot of Iranian that became Iranian Americans. And my father made sure that the culture was very much instilled. I still speak fluent Farsi, as you know. And I think so much of whatever I've done, I think good and bad, because being half German, half Iranian is like having a hurricane and a tornado in your brain at the same time. But the culture was a huge influence on who I am. Iranians are, and I'm a little bit biased, obviously, but you know, Iranians are the hardest working people I've ever been around. I mean, the only other demographic that I've felt so much in common with are Jewish people, who are some of my best friends in the world. And if you kind of go back and look at the history, Cyrus's wife, Esther, was Jewish. So much of this, our Iranian culture has a lot of Judaism built into it. And forget about what the politics and stuff say, but that's where I found the most commonality for my work ethic. And you said I'm an attorney, which is also part of who I am, because being an attorney is not just a license, and I still have my license, of course, but it changes your DNA. It changes the way you look at the world and how you see things. And I'm very proud to be an Iranian. I'm very proud to be an American. And learning the law, you start to understand what these liberties are and what it means to be in a representative republic. and how you can work within the laws to do the things that you do. But I didn't really want to be a lawyer. Being Iranian, and any Iranian watching this will know that if you're not a doctor or a lawyer and not an engineer, you're a nobody to your parents. So my father said, after you become an attorney, you can be an exotic dancer for all I care.
Are you serious?
That was a quote unquote. So I went to Texas A&M for undergrad, but I was too dumb for them to let me in directly. So I had to go to two community colleges. Before I went to Blinn in Bryan, which is kind of a feeder school like ACC is to UT that feeds into Texas A&M. And I wanted to study English literature. I've always been big into books and reading. I had a very bad speech impediment growing up. So reading was a place that I found a lot of comfort. And I'm a very private person overall. And I think that I still, when I get on stage or when I talk and things like this, a part of me still gets scared that my stutter or my speech impediment is going to come back.
You're doing fantastic.
Well, 7 years of speech therapy later, it better be a little bit better than it was. But for me, the hard work has always really been the answer, and you look back and you've seen the things that we've been able to build. We've invested in 38 cities, 13 states, 7 asset classes in 2 countries successfully, and I own 100% of the company. We never took outside capital at the corporate level, although our investors are public pension funds, insurance companies, high net worth individuals, NBA stars, A-list celebrities, you name it. The key was never about money for us in particular. It's about building something, which I think is a very Iranian mentality, really building community, and building things that matter. And the first thing that I built was me.
How did you rebuild yourself? What do you mean by building yourself?
Building myself, meaning my father gave me the book Think and Grow Rich, when I was 12, when I was 12 years old. And it cued me into this concept that, your thoughts are things. And that was the thing that I thought, okay, well, if I can't control my surroundings, and my family lost everything coming from Iran, that, hearing these grandiose stories of the Shah of Iran, of Elizabeth Taylor being in Tehran, and then seeing the way that the world had changed, I grew up with these stories, but, not having much, seeing my father work multiple jobs, and parents divorcing when I was really young, and all great blessings, in hindsight, but figuring out, well, the only thing I can really govern is me. And, being a builder of real estate, you can take the analogy very far of, the foundation of whatever you're going to build has to come from you, whether that's the knowledge you have, whether it's the discipline, whether it's the schooling, the books. I believe I'm the sum total of the books that I've read. Or the experiences that I had. And I started by saying, what's my goal? Because if you don't know where you're going, how are you going to know when you get there? First of all, so you say, I'm going to want all this money, or I want all this, like, you need to kind of know what you want. And I was very fortunate early that I knew what I want. I knew I wanted to build big things. And my grandfather kind of put that thought in my head driving through downtown Dallas as a little kid. I told him I wanted to be a doctor like him. And he was one of the Shah of Iran's psychiatrists, which I heard all these stories of. My great uncle, General Rastegar, was one of the top generals in the Iranian army, as you know.
Yes.
And after the revolution, we're all executed. My grandfather survived. I grew up kind of with these stories, and I wanted to be a doctor like my grandpa, just because I wanted to be like my grandpa. And as we were driving, I remember it so vividly that he said, no, like, you're not going to be a doctor. We're in America. Okay, like, what does that mean? He's like, you're going to be a businessman. I remember thinking, I was like, what the fuck is a businessman? What does that even mean? And to kind of, I guess, bring it to light, he looked out the window and says, you see all these buildings? Like, yeah. He goes, one day you're going to buy all of them. Like, well, that's what a businessman is? Like, yeah.
And you didn't have any idea.
I was 8 years old.
Yeah.
I was like, okay. Like, I guess I'm going to buy all these buildings. And being an artist from a young age, being, painting and not being that good. My kids are much better than I am. But painting, writing, I started to just visualize what these buildings would look like. And it's come to light, today with, We have over 1 million square feet of new construction in this market, which is difficult to say the least, that we've completed and delivered over the past 30 days. I mean, so this very much, I can look back and see these little connections, but it all comes back to this heritage. It comes back to this belief that the future can be better than the present, and having these little seeds of knowledge, where I was fortunate that my father and my grandfather in particularly, were able to give me a dream before I had my own. And, I watered it, I nurtured it, I grew it. But those things were given to me at a very young age. And I remember both my dad and my grandfather, both in differing times, telling me these great stories of Iran, of our culture, of our history, and then kind of with an element of sadness saying, well, I had your whole life planned for you, and that's just not what it's going to be. You're going to have to go rebuild it. So for me, the business, the legacy for my children, for our investors, for our communities, wasn't about building something for myself. It was about taking back what I thought was mine. So somebody from an emotional standpoint, if you think this is mine, you're giving it back to me. It's a very different feeling than I'm going to go out and earn something for myself. So I didn't really think I went out to earn anything. I just took back what was mine.
What I'm hearing, that you were in an environment that was not only encouraging, but would give you the guidance through the grandfather. Because your father was saying you got to be a doctor or lawyer, but the grandfather was saying, no, you got to be a businessman. And he put that seed in your mind. But how important the environment is, because you had that. And for some people, they don't have that environment. How they can they create it?
They can. Well, the environment starts within your head. So my background, there's some things that, that I'm not prepared to talk about publicly yet, but my upbringing was incredibly traumatic in a variety of ways. And so, splitting my time between my mother and my father, and my dad raising me as a single father from age 8 to 18, the environment was a very, very difficult environment. All money was always the topic of discussion, not having enough money. I remember, almost getting evicted from our place when, I was in elementary school, living with my mom, and selling baseball cards, and always having this need of seeing this lack of things that existed. But if you look at the analogy, a real estate analogy, or you look at the analogy of a plant, it's not always the seed that doesn't grow. Sometimes it's the soil, to your point. Sometimes it's sunlight. There's so many different variables that affect it, to your point. An environment can be as simple as the environment of what your bedroom looks like putting up the posters of, people that might not be good role models as environment. The books that you read, the friends that you hang out with, these are all environmental. So environmental can be a microcosm, or it can be a bigger discussion. And so those people that are in very persecuted areas, as we both know right now, there's very embarrassingly awful wars going on in various countries, and poverty and all of these things. And I wouldn't be arrogant enough to speak to how they could change their environments, because it's beyond me how it's even happening. But I can tell you, if you're in America and you're in this country, there are so many resources, whether from YouTube or as a great example, that you can put yourself in an environment emotionally and psychologically that starts to change. Just like anything else, it grows. Whatever you focus on will grow, period. And sometimes when you can't get yourself out of that little hook, and I'm as guilty of it than anybody, is finding little audios, finding little videos, listening to people. Because my greatest mentors have all been in books. They're all authors. And so by going on YouTube, if you don't think you're maybe a strong reader, if you're more auditory, you can go find the greatest thinkers in the world and continuously put yourself in that environment for almost free of cost. For most people. Again, there are extreme circumstances, of course, where this isn't possible. But for the people that are listening to this podcast, and you have the ability to access through technology, the ability to hear me and nobody talk about things I'm talking about, you can sure go on YouTube and find people a lot smarter than me and listen to the things they have to say. And the more that you hear about it, the more questions you're going to ask. Because to me, questions were always the answer. I was never interested in answers as much as I was interested in asking a better question. And, when I wake up every day and I look at the business, which has grown, I'd like to, say that it's grown bigger than I dreamed, but it's not actually. It's much smaller than I thought it was going to be by this point. Is how can I ask a better question? Like, what business am I in? What business should I be in? And constantly asking these questions of this improvement creates what I believe to be the most powerful commodity in the universe. And that's momentum. Because when momentum hits, the growth becomes exponential. At the beginning, you're working so hard to go to the gym and eat that good food or stop, picking up that alcohol or whatever your vice is. And I believe we should always be at war with our vices, no matter what. You want to have some sort of semblance of peace with the people that you're around, but be at war with your vices. That's the only war that I really condone, is the one that's in between my two ears. And what happens is when you put in that effort and you push that boulder up the mountain, there's a point where you get to the pinnacle of it and it just goes down the mountain on its own. And when momentum kicks up and you hit that J curve, the growth that you'll experience, the progress that you'll make is so far beyond your imagination, but you have to sludge through to be able to gain that momentum. And when you gain momentum, it's out of your hands.
And then how you keep the momentum going, because that's the problem with stuff that, as you know, entrepreneurs.
What happens if you stop watering a plant?
It's going to die.
The work never stops. And for me, work is worship. That's the way that I've looked at it.
Don't you think you're a workaholic?
That's like saying, are you an oxygenaholic? Are you a wateraholic?
No, but I need a certain amount of the water to drink every day. Yeah.
Correct. Do you ever stop breathing during the day?
No.
Well, you do intermittently.
Yeah,
you take a deep breath, you exhale.
Yeah.
The point in this world is to leave the world.
Your perspective is so like, it's different. Like, your regimen, of course, we're going to talk about your regimen, your daily regimen, but your perspective, to life is very unique. Like you say that you work hard, you make money, and you deserve to have everything you want. And at the same time, help other people. Like capitalism.
Well, I believe in capitalism. The way that you're explaining it, just for some clarity, is, like I said, for me, work is like breathing. So the characterization of workaholic and things, I think, is a very lazy, entitled American concept that makes me nauseous. Work is, you don't say that a bee is a workaholic.
Yeah.
Do you ever say that a bee is a workaholic? Do you ever say that anyone in the animal kingdom? But if you watch animals, they're constantly working. So for me, my work is my life. It's the thing that I'm doing to prove that me breathing oxygen and taking it from this earth is worthwhile, and leaving it in a better place. So helping other people, for me, I don't look at it as let me help other people. I look at it as, well, let me create an environment, back to that word, that other people can plug into this thing. You build a house, there's the lumber, there's the insulation, there's the HVAC,
Amen.
there's the concrete. So if I create this moment where these other things can exist and other people can attach to it, because I don't believe in entitlements. I'm sorry. It's something, people that can't work for themselves and feed for themselves are being hurt or persecuted. I will stand up for those people every day of the week. But able-bodied people with all four limbs, have their faculties, I don't have sympathy for in that regard. They should work themselves. They should do the things that they're supposed to do, because that's where joy and fulfillment comes. Anytime we seek comfort over discomfort, we fall apart. And we know that in human physiology. And I'm big into physiology and peak performance. When people start to get, let's say, wealthier, they move their body less. So when you lose your body less, you lose it.
Yeah.
When that seat gets a little more comfy, you're not moving around. So the more that you sit, the more your back hurts. If you look at the most active people in the world, they live longer. So the characterization is wrong. We need to be in a place where we're working, moving, and fit more, and that creates more longevity. So I want to put people in a position, myself at the top of that list, that I can move, think, work. What's the old saying? You don't use it, you lose it?
You lose it, yeah.
And I think that goes, because to me, everything is everything. The philosophy of how you work is the philosophy of how you live, the philosophy of how you eat. These are all the same thing. If I'm going to drink sodas and I don't drink sodas, it's a quick fix. It's a quick, let me fix my taste. It's a shorter sensation. The most successful people in the world can delay gratification. The longer you can delay instant gratification, the higher probability of your successes. You go to the gym one day. Are you ripped and shredded, look like Arnold Schwarzenegger?
No.
Let's say you go back for 2 days. Are you Arnold Schwarzenegger?
No.
Go to the gym 4 days a week for 90 days. you're a different person. And this is the same concept that we've come away from in this TikTok era. And I'm a huge proponent of technology. I think technology overall has moved the human race more towards something good than bad. Everything is a mixed bag. Then that's the other part, night and day, up, down, sad, happy. We have these duality because we wouldn't understand one without the other. That's how I know we're a lesser civilization and a lower minded intellect, is because we need two to understand one, as an example. But if you can push these things outward and say to yourself, I'm going to not just focus on my taste, I'm going to think about how this can change my physiology with the food that we intake, the information that we put into our minds, the probability of success becomes exponentially higher. But in this TikTok generation of short form content, if you look at the beginning with TV, there was 30-minute sitcoms, and then it became 3 seconds. So the shorter the attention span has come, the less likely it is to focus and create experts in the field, which is the opportunity, by the way. There's never been a time that is easier to create wealth when nobody focuses beyond 3-4 seconds on a variety of topics. Experts in a unified field are the people that run the world. General knowledge doesn't make you wealthy. Specialized knowledge makes you wealthy. And specialized knowledge requires what most people will call boredom. But to me, boring is beautiful. That's my philosophy. Boring is beautiful. The more boring in the situation, the more repetitious, the higher level of satisfaction for me. The word kung fu in Chinese refers to mastery. It's not just martial arts. And kung fu is about taking the same task and doing it so repeatedly, so consistently that it becomes effortless. This concept of taking something, Steph Curry, the greatest shooter in the world, who, by the way, shoots 52% at best, which means he misses 48 out of 100 shots, first of all, the best in the world. In baseball, if you strike out 7 times out of 10, you're not just good, you're in the Hall of Fame. So back to this recharacterizing what we think is greatness means that you're losing most of the time. But you keep shooting that repetitive task. And they asked Curry, becoming the best shooter in the world, Tony Robbins explained it, and it was very enlightening, is he takes 500 free throws a day. And he has since he was 10 years old. Just free throws, not behind the leg, behind the back, these fancy, just free throws. And then over time, that repetition of doing a seemingly mundane task, everyone wants the silver bullet. Everyone wants the fancy this, do the specialty, whatever. But it's amazing what happens if you just don't eat sugar and you eat whole foods, like just whatever your mentality is around this. To me, it's a good fish, vegetables, and drink high quality water. Buy a little distiller on Amazon for $110. Distill your tap water, drink high quality water, stay away from sugar, eat foods that go bad in a few days is a very simple. Commenting. And move your body a little bit, like walking. You don't need to go to have a fancy gym membership. Walk outside a little bit. It's amazing how if you follow the Pareto principle, this 80%, 80-20 rule, these very simple things, but now people don't want to do the simple things. And it's not even an expensive task. You get a multivitamin with life extensions. It's $9 a month. You get most of the vitamins you need. You get your little distiller. You eat high quality food and you walk a little bit. Don't sit. Just that. It's simple. You don't need to, I go in hyperbaric chambers. I do stem cells. I've done all those things. And that's one of the benefits of, doing well financially. But I enjoy it. It's my fun. My hobby is health and wellness.
Yeah, you are really biohacking. And, I think the reason that you do biohacking, correct me if I'm wrong, is just your productivity. It helps your productivity. Is that right?
And I think it's fun.
And it's fun.
And it's fun for me. I enjoy, I think first it was productivity, first and foremost. Absolutely. Because the more that I can, because they say on an airplane, and again, if you listen closely, and we joked about this before, about common sense not being so common. If you're on an airplane and they say, if God forbid the airplane's going to crash, they say, put the oxygen mask on your face first before you help others. Well, that's so selfish and terrible. How can you? I'm all I got. I came here alone. I'm all I got. I don't take care of me. I can't take care of anybody else. I can't do anything else. So all this comes down to, if my work is my worship, and this is the way that I created an environment where more people can have productivity and be a part of something, If I don't do these, call it biohacking, whatever these fancy words are, and I can't show up every day with this constant onslaught of information and this and whatever bullshit that comes at you, because the work isn't what's hard. What's hard is all the distractions that come along the way and still staying focused no matter what happens. And that's where it came from. And over time, I thought it was pretty cool. I liked learning about hyperbaric chambers. I have one of the greatest age management doctors on the planet. His name is Dr. Jacob Rosenstein. He runs a clinic. He's a neurosurgeon, 40-year neurosurgeon. It's in Arlington, Texas. It's called Southwest Age Management. You go take your blood, and he makes compounding pharmacy vitamins for you, tests your blood, sees your deficiency. And every 60, 90 days, he retests my blood and creates vitamins, completely changed my life. But if you look at the math and you say, okay, it's $3,500 to start and $500 a month on vitamins. To a lot of people, it's a lot of money. But if you look at how much money you're spending on bottled water, Red Bull, and drinking a few alcoholic drinks on the weekend, this and that, you find out pretty quickly that, a lot of hardworking people on salaries of teachers and firefighters, and a lot of my investors are teachers and firefighters, so I spend a lot of time with them, which is probably the greatest gratification of my life. You can budget these things in, but people just don't prioritize it. And at the end of the day, if you don't have your health, you don't have shit. And that's just a fact. That's not a cliche. That's not an Instagram post. If, ask anybody, you're having a great day and all of a sudden your back starts hurting, your day's over. And so for me, this was an investment.
Absolutely right.
This was an investment.
Yeah.
This is an investment. I'm a professional investor. I invest for a living. I manage money for a living. We've done, thank God, extremely well for our clients over the year. We're just getting started. But my first investment was me.
That's a great way to put it, because I don't know what it is. We think that we are going to help others first. And I always tell everybody, I agree with you. I told him and my mother, I said, I cannot help you if I don't help myself first. If I'm not healthy.
It's a very selfish, egotistical act to help other people before helping yourself. It is an embedded procrastination method.
And why people, they're judging you based on that?
Short-term gratification. Misery loves company. Why do you think people drink together? They don't want to feel bad. They want people to do whatever vice they have together. That's why drug addicts hang out together, alcoholics hang out together. That's why people go to the gym, hang out together, whatever you have. But when you go help somebody else, it gives you a dopamine hit. Makes you feel good.
Yeah.
I helped this person, so I'm good. So I don't have to worry about being this other shit that I did over here that I'm hiding under the rug. I helped this guy. It's just another way of looking for a way to be self-serving. The real work is doing the stuff for yourself. And businesses, as an example, are one of the greatest ways to serve. You're employing these people. You're paying taxes that are building roads and infrastructure and you're offering a great service to people. What better way to serve the world than build an incredible business? And yes, do you make some money and things that come out of it? To me, creating a lot of wealth means you helped a lot of people. Yes, are there certain examples where people are doing nefarious things and sure, but as a general rule, entrepreneurship is the lifeblood of America. Small businesses are the greatest employers.
The backbone.
The backbone of this country. This is what makes this country great. It's why I love this country more than any other country on earth, is because it supports my kids, allows me to fulfill the dreams that I have, and more importantly, allowing my work to be the thing. So you won't catch me all the time out there giving to charities and doing all these things. My business is my charity in the extent, because I don't believe in just charity. I want to teach the guy to fish, not just give him a fish. It's emasculating to people. You give them this, give them. Well, why can't I take a little extra time to train them to go help themselves? And then they can help somebody else. That's the real work. It's easy to just go give money. If you end up as a business owner, just throwing money at a problem, it doesn't help it. You have to fix the fucking problem.
Yep. Just
throwing money at it is a way that you don't do the real work.
I have a personal question for you, and I consider this as a free coaching. Thank you. Money guilt. I did not understand that my time has a value, and I'm a giver. I give and give. And one day I stopped. I said, how much money you put on the table, you lost. I had that feeling that I don't deserve to make the money, or if I do, what other people thinking. It was very hard for me to change that mindset, that money guilt trip.
Yeah.
And you think, what is that? Why is that? Now, if I tell
For
everybody,
you, it's being Persian.
maybe, maybe you're right. And how you can change, because a lot of people out there, maybe like me, how you can change that thought, that mindset.
Well, look, I think the most important thing is first gaining awareness. Because a lot of times, let's say my tie is crooked. Okay. And I walk around all day. I don't know my tie is crooked. How am I supposed to fix it? So it's most people don't even know their tie is crooked. But if you look in a mirror and you see it's crooked, very easily you go like this, you fix it. I think that's the underlying problem for most people, me included. Picasso used to say, you can't see the picture when you're in the frame. All the greatest anything have coaches. You think Phil Jackson ever could have guarded Kobe Bryant?
Hell no.
You think you could have guarded Jordan? No. We need that level of accountability, especially in this world. My business coach, I talk with every single week like clockwork.
You still have a business coach?
More than ever. And my whole original life, this whole Rastegar concept started with my coach. Her name is Lauren Zander. She's one of my best friends for many years. Every morning, every night, check-ins, accountability, got my teeth kicked in for making the mistakes. But without her during those times, and then as times change, priorities change, you need different types of coaches. So my coach now, his name is Byron Morrison. He's absolutely brilliant, but his niche is very particular. He only works with founders that are becoming CEOs. Founders that are transitioning to CEOs. Let me explain that for a second. It was big
that's
for me.
A little bit.
Founders, what makes a great founder, and this was for me, the picture in the frame thing. This is a big problem for me that's still a little tough to talk about because it's so embarrassing. But what makes a great founder is somebody that does everything. Stay up all night, you work on this, you're illegal, you put this hat on, that hat on, da da ba ba ba. That exact characteristic makes an awful CEO. What makes a great founder makes a terrible CEO by definition. CEOs empower people. They delegate. They train. They don't go there and make every sale call. Do you think Howard Schultz goes and sells every coffee at Starbucks?
Hell no.
Hell no. But as a founder, you're doing all the sales. You're driving revenue. You're cutting deals. You're running marketing, which is fine. But as the business, I woke up one day and the business was huge. I'd say, oh my God, I'm the problem. I'm in this and I'm talking this and I'm micromanaging this guy and telling him whatever. So Byron has helped me, and he's worked with some of the biggest unicorn founders in the world. And you hear the testimonials. It's unbelievable what they say about him. And they're right, is no. We have to change the mentality. We have to have a paradigm shift where it's not about me being the best shooter in the world anymore. It's about being a coach. It's about being a team manager. It's about finding these other places where I can do better work to delegate and empower teams, not just me taking the shot. Because me being a great shooter has actually held the business back. Because I said, oh, fuck it, I'll do it myself, instead of getting 500 people to go do it and me teaching them the things I learned along the way.
How did you let it go? That's not an easy thing to do. Because if you were some people are a micromanager, I know some people, it's very hard thing to let it go and just trust that person.
Nothing in life that's worth doing is easy. You need to learn to become comfortably uncomfortable. If there's one thing that...
Was it hard for you?
Yes, incredibly hard for me. It still is. It only... You know what's funny is when you don't know about biology, as an example, you can say I don't understand how this works, that works. But if you start studying biology even for one evening, you realize how much you don't know that you don't know. The more that you study something, the more that you realize how little you know. Oh. The more books that I've read, and anybody that knows me knows that I spend 4 to 6 hours a day reading, and I have for 30 years. It's who I am. And you saw me where I was sitting in the Persian restaurant. Was I with anybody?
No.
I was alone. Had my book, had a couple pens and highlighters, and those are my friends. That's my way of learning. But the more that I've read, the more that I realize that I don't know as much. And this is that comment that Socrates made years ago, and I didn't understand. He's like, the only thing I know is I know nothing. I was like, what the fuck is this guy talking about?
Yeah.
I don't know nothing. Like, this is such a one of these weird. And then one day I was like, oh my God, that's what he meant. It means the more people that have studied and read more, they're so humble. It's like, God, you're so humble. It's like, no, I'm not humble. It's that I'm in awe of how little I actually know. Like when you've read 1,000 books and you realize there's 10 million other books, the guy that's read 3 books only thinks there's 1,000 books to read. So they're arrogant enough to think that they can actually do it. And so being in awe of, oh my God, like there's been grace in my life that things actually worked out. I actually had to get lucky in these certain instances. I could have get hit by a bus 50 times. You start to sit back and say, okay, well, I'm just gonna keep going. Because you realize how small you are in a vast universe. And it's not about humility or false humility. It's the actualization that you actually don't know shit.
And does that motivate you to go more?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. That's why I'm here. The day that I stop growing, this day I can stop contributing is the day I'm done.
You have a very unique, perspective towards life with everything you do, especially the project that you do in Dallas right now. That's the living building. And I heard from a couple of people, I really don't know what is the depth of it, but it's got a story behind it. And you mentioned something. Why did you do that?
Yeah, so there's, well, as you know, we're doing a lot at the moment by anybody's standards, but I have a philosophy on how I believe the future should actually be. And there's a fine line between everybody should live in modular homes, or we're going to live in big plasma and wear glasses.
Tiny houses.
Yeah, that's not how I see the world. I believe in small micro changes over time to create little efficiencies. Because in my business, if you can't get good financing, real estate is not a good business. The whole business works on financing. So if you do something that's too weird, the banks are going to give you money. So you have to find a way to operate within the parameters what the banks will finance you. It's the leverage returns. You borrow between 60 to 75% of the entire capital stack. So the first big investor for any real estate person is their bank. So if you go to the bank and say, we're going to build teeny houses on this that are floating across the river, that are fully sustainable, they're going to say, and then your numbers don't work. So start with that. We have 318 acres in Kyle, Texas. 318 acres, to put it in perspective, there is 2,800 residential units on that with apartments and houses combined.
Wow.
New elementary school, 60 acres of green space, 50,000 square feet of new retail on one project that's under construction at this moment. Along with all the other stuff, the industrial park we did next to the Gigafactory, we just completed.
A small town.
Office building in downtown that has balconies and staircases on the outside, which was designed to be in a post-COVID world because nobody wants these big office buildings. They want smaller boutique, well-located offices. And the projects, have done incredibly well because, we've taken a lot of time to understand really what the community needs. And the amount of time I've spent on zoning, which is the thing that I believe we do better than anybody on the planet, is changing zoning and changing uses because we spend the time to understand not only what the community wants to get affidavits of support, but kind of know where the world is going and why. Okay. Dallas was a big piece of that because I grew up in the Highland Park School District. My father was at night school at SMU. So we lived in student housing of SMU. So I was the poorest kid in the richest neighborhood, which gave me a very unique perspective on just kind of how the world really worked. And McKinney Avenue is the Park Avenue of Dallas. Everybody knows of the Ritz-Carlton's a couple blocks away. Clyde Warren Park, which is like our Central Park, is there. Something very magical happened over the last 18 months or 2 years. Goldman Sachs announced 4,000 mandatory and office employees will go directly across the street from our site. Our site is at 1899 McKinney. The site is a triangle, and there's a lot of depth and thought into the golden triangle of Texas. Our logo is what's called an eternity knot, which is also triangles and sacred geometry. And there's a whole slew of heart value and depth into what the triangles really mean. And which we can get into at another time. But that corridor has just really exploded with growth. Bank of America decided to keep their headquarters in Dallas, and they broke ground on their new office building that a friend of mine is building on one side of our site. Across the street, Goldman Sachs is under construction to bring 4,000 employees, so which represents this massive shift of New York coming to Texas. Cuban sold the Mavericks to the Adelson family, which is giving some whispers that casinos could be coming to Texas.
Ooh.
And this is across from American Airlines. So all these things kind of changed. So when I bought the site, I guess about 6 years ago, you couldn't really build too much there. Unbelievable location, but the height was capped at about 70 feet. And for that area of being, these super tall skyscrapers everywhere, it was kind of like the missing tooth of McKinney. Like all these things were coming, and meeting with the neighbors, meeting with the community, we came to see that people really wanted something residential in this area because of the need was so dramatic. So we had conversations, met with our architects, met with several people in that area that really helped us have a really meaningful dialogue. And we went and were able to change the zoning to build a 350-foot super tall skyscraper, which again, it's a big project, but it's so needed for that area, especially with all these new workers coming with Goldman. They like proximity. If you look after 9/11, when Goldman Sachs moved to Battery Park, they built all these apartment complexes right around it because they wanted their employees to be close to attract top talent to work and make Dallas this even bigger financial epicenter. There's needs for the people that need to be there. And we plan on being an integral, pivotal part to give the housing that these people are going to really need. I talked to David Sullivan, the CEO of Goldman Sachs, about it when he was in Austin about 9 months ago. So it'll be something very important to them as well. But for me, it was back to something even deeper, as we talked about earlier. There used to be a nightclub there called Glass. And my best friend and chief of staff of Rastegar, we've been friends since we were in 6th grade. And one day, another one of our good friends, who's a real estate broker in Dallas, his name is TJ Frank. He works for Compass Brokerage. He's one of the top brokers in the entire city, who's going to be working on this project with us as well. We're trying to get into this nightclub. We're standing in line, and it starts to rain. And by the time we got to the front, there was so much mud that my shoes got kind of dirty. And the bouncer said I couldn't get in.
What?
Said, well, your shoes look like shit. You all look, let's get law testing.
Yeah.
And we didn't get in. So
Are you serious?
Yeah, and I still have the shoes. So, so 15 years after that, I went back and bought the building, and I thought to myself, "Wow, what a moment of seeing what you can or can't do." And for me, I started this company with a $3,500 loan and $300,000 in student loans 9 years ago, and to be the place that we are, there's a lot of luck and a lot of grace and a lot of great people that help you. And that's not just me saying that. That's the reality of the situation. We have some of the greatest investors, smartest investors on the planet, huge institutional clients that have been to support us along the way. But this project, for what's happening with Goldman Sachs, the shift, the mentality of Texas becoming the next New York, of the sheer size of the Golden Triangle alone within Texas would be, as an economy, larger than the country of Brazil. We're big believers in Texas. I'm born in Austin, Texas. I went to law school at San Antonio at St. Mary's. I'm a Texas A&M graduate. Like, Texas is my home. My soul is very, very Iranian, but my home is Texas. And Dallas, growing up in Highland Park, Park Cities, and not being allowed in these certain circles or areas to be able to own what I believe is the most important piece of real estate in Dallas, which, if you follow all the population migration trends, Dallas will be the most populated city in the United States of America by 2050. And so to own that piece, and nobody like me doesn't get to own 1899 McKinney. Like, this is 52nd and Park Avenue if you were in New York.
Yes.
And so I sketched the building. I designed the concept that we believe will serve the community at best. The things that we're going to be doing at the ground level for the community and the people that won't live in the building are going to be profound. There will be living atrium components to it. The shapes of the building itself will be things that'll be profound, not only for the state of Texas, but for
One of the kind, yeah.
one of a kind. But it speaks to a concept of what we believe about architecture, is that great architecture should be a response to topography. Meaning that the architecture in great real estate should appear to be an extension of what that land is. So if the building has a slope here, building the building in a way that the slope helps with the structure of the building as a rudimentary example. And that's what this building is going to really do as we start to see heat rise across the state of Texas, creating more shaded areas, coming away from rooftop pools because they're too hot, creating pools that are cantilevered and are off the sides of the building so there's more shade. There's a lot of thoughtful things that are going to go into this structure. And just by the nature of the triangle of the site alone, we're going to do a little bit of a hat tip to the Flatiron building just to make it very clear that Texas is the new New York. It's something that I'm very, very passionate about. So the building will tell a story, and we look forward to the people that live in the building to be able to have their own stories. And that's so much of what this business really means to me, is creating an environment, to the original part of the conversation, where people can live their best lives. Because to me, these aren't tenants, these are neighbors. These aren't houses, these are homes. These aren't retail. These are small businesses that you said are the lifeblood of this country. And when you look through it with that vantage point, building a business means building a bigger and better community, because bigger is not always better. And we're trying to change that dialogue where we can be bigger, but we can be bigger because we know better.
We talk about a lot of stuff, and you went through a lot. Good, bad, ugly. We didn't talk about the ugly, maybe one day, but what was the motivation for you to write The Failure is a Gift? The reason I'm asking, I really personally don't believe failure. I just think that I tried something and it didn't work, and I'm going to do it again. I didn't really fail.
I think it's easy to say that, and I'm guilty of it as well, but
I felt it.
It still hurts.
It hurt.
It still hurts. And when you're in that moment and things didn't work out, and you're embarrassed to your family, your friends, your colleagues, and that outside criticism. And that's what I've learned over the years, is the people standing in the stands that are throwing peanuts at you can be a lot more harmful than the business itself. And that fear of criticism, I believe, is probably the greatest fear that we have as entrepreneurs, is of what are people going to think if this doesn't work, or what. And so much of our ideas are skewed, and I'm as guilty of it as anybody in those early years of, wanting to be liked, wanting to, appear successful, wanting the parents to be proud of you, wanting a little bit of admiration. And I think that's very human. I mean, my motivations now have changed dramatically, but there was a time when I just wanted to be seen. I wanted, someone to give me the attaboy and a little pat on the back and, say that things are going to be okay. But if you look back, if you look at children as an example, when a kid is learning to walk, they get up, they fall down, and they don't lose enthusiasm. They get up.
You're absolutely right.
They fall down. And not only that, but the parents don't say, oh, stupid Billy will never learn to walk. Try it again. But there's a time that it shifts where failure became something where you're reprimanded, whether in our schooling systems, which has been a dramatic failure, where somehow we were brainwashed into feeling we needed to be perfect when perfection is a lie. Perfect doesn't exist. What exists is excellence. And that goes back to the Steph Curry, to the shooting percentages, and even the Pareto principle, the 80-20 rule. If you can get it right 80% of the time, you're a god. You get it right. And like I said, in baseball, 30% of the time, you're in the Hall of Fame. And I think recharacterizing that piece where, yes, you're going to fail, but if you can have the resilience, and that's really what it is resilience, to stop for a moment and think that that rest is not laziness. And that was a big thing for me, is where I thought that if I stopped, I'm lazy. If I slept too early, but learning that, wow, like there's an off season in sports for a reason. There's a reason why, you sit on the bench and you come back out. So understanding the difference between rest and procrastination and what's the fine line between them. And I promised myself when I was flipping burgers at Johnny Rockets and delivering pizzas at Double Dave's and selling used cars in Laredo, Texas, after I graduated top of my class from undergrad with a 4.0 GPA. I promised that if I ever got to the other side, I would try to tell the truth. And, being with some of my closest friends that are billionaires, celebrities, so you name it, all these things. A lot of them are much more down to earth than you think, especially the most successful ones, because they know what it's like to get kicked in the teeth. I promised myself that I would try my best to tell the truth. And what I learned along the way is the first line of the book is, I hope you fail. I hope you fail a lot, because the people that don't fail never succeed. And that's not a catchy line. That's not a quote. The greatest
prerequisites.
It's a prerequisite. It's the nature of it. And if you don't have the will to fail, not the will to win, for me, my will is to fail because it takes more courage, I believe. And courage doesn't mean that you're not scared. That's the big misnomer too. Courage means you are scared and you did it anyway. If you're fearless, there's no reason to be courageous. There's no courage if you're not scared.
Yeah.
So I find for me, for courage to be the creed, and I find that fear is an incredible tool in my toolkit, because when I'm scared, my senses are heightened. I'm at my best. My back's against the wall. I see things in a different light.
You actually perform better?
No question.
Really?
Never. And I think if you go back and look at the times in your life that you were scared, look at the miracles, the things that you pulled out of your hat, the things that you got done. You're forced to be more resourceful, not more resources. And so I've made fear my friend. And the demons now, they're in there in my head, but the only difference is I know my demons by their first names now. We're buddies. So I know when they pop in my head and start talking all that shit, I'm like, oh, okay, this is where we are. And using fear to my benefit, and my greatest, I guess, aspiration now is to embrace that fear of failure, is to be able to look at something, and if it's the right reason, for the right purpose, to do something great, can I have the courage to fail?
But you never got to the point that you said, I'm going to throw the towel, I'm done?
No.
Really?
Nope.
Just keep going.
I don't know any other way. I don't know any other way other than to go forward. But the thing you learn about going forward, and sports are an easy analogy. I'm not a big sports guy. I watch, our investors that are players because they're my friends, but I'm not interested in watching another person do their job, quite frankly. If they're doing your job, do your job, but that's not interesting to me. But it's a good analogy for life. And in basketball, the greatest shots in the world are step back jumpers. You got to take a step back and create space to hit that game winning shot. And that's the same with life. Sometimes you get hit, you take that step back, it creates an opening, and then you shoot. It's not always offense.
Do you shoot and adjust, or do you adjust and shoot?
I think you have to learn to do both simultaneously, and that's where the art comes in. We all have, or those of us that have been blessed enough to have 2 arms and 2 legs and have our eyesight and have our senses. That Kaizen mentality of constant, never-ending improvement is about adjustments. And at this point in my life, I'm not looking to be strong. I'm looking to be flexible. And that's a difference even in my workouts. Like, I'm looking for more agility and flexibility. And, my yoga teacher used to say it takes a lot of effort to become effortless. And when you watch the greatest performers in the world, like, God, it's so easy for them.
Yeah,
They're
right.
so talented. But it's amazing how true talent is bred from hard work, not from anything else. And that goes back to that mentality of what's that meaning. To me, work is worship, as I've said over and over again. If I'm a workaholic, that means that you're an oxygenaholic. That means a bee is a workaholic. That means that a cow is a workaholic. That's just life. And we're here to do our little piece, and everything is connected. Everything is connected. The birds and the bees and the trees are all come together for a unified purpose. And I just want to play my role. I want to play my role in this little floating blue planet in the middle of infinity with stars and dust everywhere. I want to plow my own road and create an environment where other people can worship in their own accord with the rules and a government that allow them to worship the God that they want to worship or not. And that's really it.
That's life.
That's just life to me.
Yep.
It's not a work. It's not a day off. This is just.
I have, interviewed so many people, sat down with so many people, but you are a scary, talented judge. You have a very unique character, man. And, I like it. I like it. You are just...
I've been called much worse, trust me.
But you're good. Like, you create that environment that works for you. At the same time, you're building it to help others, not actually giving them money, but create the resources. Because our problem, as you just mentioned, is not resources, it's resourcefulness. That's our biggest problem, I think. But a lot of people out there, they want to create wealth. They're going to be free. They want freedom, financial freedom. They want to do anything they want. What advice do you have for those people that they're listening to this or watching and say, I want to be Ari, or I don't want to be him, but I want to get out of what I'm currently in and I'm suffering. What should I do?
Well, pain and suffering aren't the same thing. Pain is something that happens to you. Like you get punched in the arm, that's pain. Suffering is an emotional decision. You can't choose not to be in pain. Like I said, you get punched in the face, it hurts.
Yeah.
But you can choose to spend the next 3 days saying, poor me.
That's correct.
So suffering is your choice. Let's start with that. Pain is not. But you can choose what the meaning is, and you can change the meaning at any moment. Suffering is its own thing.
Okay.
It's its own emotional act of being. It's a thing. It's a behavior. Pain is not.
Yeah.
For example, I'm doing the bench press. I'm on my last rep. It fucking hurts. Are you suffering through that, or you say, man, now I'm growing?
It's how you look at it.
That's suffering. So let's be very clear. Suffering is a decision. And nobody has the right to suffer. Pain, different. If you're getting beaten every day and tortured and food, that's pain. But I want to delineate those two words. Pain can be induced upon you. Suffering, you decide what it is because it's the meaning. Suffering is about having a different meaning. Some people are in pain. Pain is being inflicted on them. Suffering is different. Think about it. That's one. And the other part is, I think the freedom, we understand that word in a very perverted manner. Freedom is what happens within the law. Freedom of speech, the 10 Commandments, the Bill of Rights are laws. You have to abide by the laws. The law creates the environment, and through discipline and routine, you create freedom. You're only free when you're governed by your own laws, and you keep the promises that you make to yourself.
Amen.
Freedom is not doing anything or anything. That's called anarchy. That's nihilism. Freedom that we have in this great country is because of the Bill of Rights, is because of the law. So it's not that there's lawlessness. It's how you govern yourself within the laws where you get freedom.
And you create that.
Yes.
Anything you want this audience to know? Anything?
I think the thing that's most important to me is I'm a nobody from nowhere. I'm not an especially talented person. I barely made it through elementary school and high school. I didn't have much money. Whatever. And if somebody like me can do anything of any notoriety, I assure you the people that are listening to this can as well. There's one thing that I think that I did pretty good over time is that I knew where I was going. I wrote my goal, and every day I got up and went after it no matter what. And I truly, truly believe that the biggest mistake or the biggest problem in this society is not that people set high goals and miss them. It's they set low goals and hit them. The great tragedy to me of people is not that they set high goals and miss and don't achieve them.
Okay.
It's that subconsciously on default, they set mediocre goals and they hit them.
And
The goal is to go to McDonald's today. They go to McDonald's.
And they're satisfied.
They're not satisfied, actually, but they didn't take the time or the discipline to set a bigger goal. And everybody's achieving their goal every day. Your goal is to get up and go to the bathroom. That's a goal, technically.
Yeah.
To get up and walk from here to there is a goal. To drive to the supermarket, right? You said in your mind, honey, I'm gonna go to HEB. That's a goal, technically. Not every goal has to be change the world and be Elon Musk. Goal could be to put on a jacket in the morning. Some people need to just change what their goal is going to be.
Basically, you're telling me I have to raise my standards and raise the bar. And then when I do that, things is going to happen. Because people, they can,
That's what I think.
You are very well dressed. You know, I always told everybody, you're really taking care of your stuff. You know exactly what, or somebody, as you said, just put a jacket, go to work. Is that what you say?
Standards govern everything. Higher the standards, higher the results. Elevate your standards and have the humility to work like a motherfucker.
Amen. Thank you, Ari. Thank you, brother.
Good to see you.